Hello and welcome to the Future is Clear Teach Like It's 2045 webcast series. My name is Scott Carr from CESA 2. Today is a special topic area where we have Art Maxwell and Jason Van Nus with us. Art is with the great platform. I call it a platform. I'm sure it's something more than that. Art, I apologize, but the great platform of YouScience, where we're going to talk a little bit about it and have Art share with us what it is, and then Jason talk about it because he utilizes it with his students at the school he works with and for. So Art Maxwell is the territory manager for YouScience, and Jason Van Nus is the director of work-based learning and apprenticeship programs at Lowndes County School District in Valdosta, Georgia. Thanks for joining us, you guys. Real quick, if we could do this, give a little background, who you are, what this is about, and where we're headed. Yeah.
Yeah, we can do exactly that. Art Maxwell here, working with YouScience. I've been in the education space for, well, geez, coming up on 12 years now, primarily around CTE and industry certifications, and then now working with YouScience in a new capacity that offers some of that, but then a lot more. Find my passion in this space. Educators are my people. Not an educator myself, but I like to often say teachers will beg, borrow, and steal anything they can for their kids. And I don't know any teachers that would actually steal. They just would beg, borrow, and get anything they can for their kids.
Right.
And I love that passion. So real quick about YouScience and kind of what we have, we'll just go to a 10,000 foot view and show you a little bit of what we have. Share my screen real quick. Should see a screen here that says Meet YouScience Bright Path. That pop up for you guys?
Yep, we got it.
Yep.
Perfect. So Meet YouScience Bright Path. This is, as it says right here, the only Aptitude-Enabled college and career readiness platform. And you're not wrong, Scott, it is a platform in that sense, but we offer so much more than just what's said here. So giving you kind of a 10,000 foot view and a walkthrough of what YouScience can do, we follow a pretty simple plan. We're going to start right here with aptitude discovery. Since the 70s and even before, we've been using interest surveys to understand what a kid knows, what they're interested in, and what's out there. But the problem with interest surveys is they're self-excluding, they're self-reported, they don't really let us see what that kid knows, and we only are able to tell what the kid knows by what they've been exposed to. And sometimes with a student, that is very inhibitive of their home situation, their regional location, so many things influence that, but there's so much more in the world that kid could potentially be really good at, and we want to help them find that. One of the ways we do that is moving beyond just interest surveys and actually running an aptitude assessment. We're the only company out there with a digital platform that allows the kids to play brain games, as we call them. They're games that are meant to challenge the student and help them to understand who they really are at their core. What are their natural talents, and how do those talents align to what's out there in the industry, both from a college and a career perspective. So we start with that aptitude discovery and then immediately help the kids use that information to get into college and career readiness planner. We're going to help them in that CCR space to really start to build out their futures of what's available out there in the world. We can then move into industry certifications. It's a big part of what we do. That's something I've been passionate about for a long time. Stackable credentials, allowing kids to prove their skills and then use those towards their college applications, towards their scholarships and grants, and then into the workspace and landing the job that's actually going to help change who they are and support their families. We have a wonderful element in work-based learning. This is another pillar of what we do. It's part of kind of the three pillars being aptitude discovery, industry certification, and then work-based learning. This work-based learning piece is really cool. It allows us to actually help schools track where their internships are, where their career fairs or reverse career fairs are, how they can actually interact and create action plans for these students, how they can track what's being done, allow the employers to give the reviews they need, get the parent signatures that are needed, all of the moving pieces around work-based learning. This can be done here in this space. And then let's help kids make real connections to education, real connections to careers, actually connecting with employers and educators and knowing where to go and what to do, what majors are out there, what areas, what schools have the field of study that they'd like to go into, what jobs are available in the market, and how can they look around. Not just that I want to get into medicine, but I want to get into this type of medicine in this location. And then finally, data and reporting. We have a pretty robust system in the back end to help you understand what's happening around you, what your ecosystem looks like, and how to influence your CTE programs, your college and career counseling programs, a tool that can really, as you say, Scott, a platform that can really be used by so many people in the school to help kids move forward. So there's kind of your 10,000 foot view. Primarily though, and that biggest blue bar across the top is that aptitude and career discovery. Once we start to understand what's under the hood of that student and we can really help them understand who they are and where their talents are. I like to tell people all the time, I was a good student. I joined clubs, I played on sports teams, I went on dates and dances, and I studied hard, but I never really did get the best grades, and I never really applied myself in high school. And I realize now, understanding these career aptitudes, it's not that I didn't apply myself, it's that I didn't really know myself to apply myself. And knowing what I know now, and if I can give that same knowledge to a student to help them know themselves, what that does for their future and the hope that gives them, that's where I get excited, that hope. So there's kind of a highlight view. Hopefully that kind of answers the question there for you, Scott.
Yeah, it does. And I'm sure we'll talk a little more in depth regarding it, but I want to move on to Jason. Jason, give us just a little bit background, what school you're at. Yeah, have at it.
Jason Van Nus, I'm the Director of Work-Based Learning and Apprenticeship Programs for Lowndes County Schools, which is located in the middle of Georgia, right on 75, about 18 to 20 miles north of Florida line. And so my job is, in particular, is a capstone to all of our CTE or career and technical education areas. So
Mhm.
students who are in those career tech areas, my job is to take those students who are interested and align internships and apprenticeships with them in our local industry. It's it To make it real quick, I am in workforce development for economic development, and my job is to give industry access to talent, allow them to retain that talent, and then once I've done my part, they've done their part, we have a talent pipeline, and it gives those industry people a an actual return on investment for their tax dollars that pay the schools to develop talent. They're actually hiring that talent that gives them a return on a sunken cost. It also gives them a substantial competitive advantage because many people in industry just skip right over secondary education and go around to post-secondary education and skip over all the credentials and high skill talent that exists in the secondary level. So that's my job, is aligning those apprenticeships, building partnerships, sustaining those, supervising students out in the workforce.
Yeah. And so you've been a big fan of YouScience
Oh,
for
yeah.
a while. Give us how did you come across YouScience? When did that start? How, even go into a little bit of how do you utilize it
Yeah.
and kind of branch off from there?
So it's interesting, and I'm glad you asked that question because it's a really organic story, and I think it'll resonate with your audience because I was aware of YouScience and I didn't want to use it. And here's why I didn't want to use it.
I almost want you to repeat that again. Like,
Yeah. So, but I think, like, bear with me. Let me finish this. I was aware of it and I didn't want to use it because teachers are inundated with stuff.
Yeah.
And so when I heard about it, my principal was like, "Hey, it's this cool program. You should really take it. It's awesome." And I was just kind of like, eye roll, big sigh. One more thing for me to do that's not my job, right? And so that was my mentality. And I don't begrudge anyone who says that because teachers are inundated with stuff.
Yeah.
But then I ran into now a good friend. She works for YouScience at a conference in Utah, Kelly Uppenshaw, and she was basically like, "Jason, it's time to put your big boy pants on, quit making excuses, and take the assessment. I promise you, we won't regret it." And I said, "Okay, fine." I took it, and it put me on paper. Things I don't. I mean, I talk about everything. I told you all know that already, but things
Mhm.
I don't talk about, it identified and diagnosed through those brain games and aptitudes. And so I said, man, as an established, somewhat successful professional in my trade, if it could pinpoint me to this level, what could it do for students who don't really have a direction yet?
Yeah.
And so that's when I fell in love with the program. And then I started using it and talking about it and presenting all over the country about how I was getting the results I'm getting. And our program, this is not a haughty statement, but I'm answering your question. Our program has been recognized at the national level. Being in contention for national awards, winning state and regional awards, multiple of those, and people are saying, "How are you doing that?" And the sharpest arrow in my quiver, the most effective tool I have is YouScience, because I mentioned earlier my job is taking students who are in the CTE laboratories and aligning placements for them in internships and apprenticeships. I do
Mhm.
that specifically by identifying and using YouScience to establish a cogent proof of concept before I put them with that employer. I know what
Yeah.
that student's skills are. I know what their aptitudes are. I know what their interests are, and I can begin to place those, knowing that they are going to have the skills and aptitudes that partner is looking for. And even then, I still track those results. So if I do have a placement that lacks efficacy for whatever reason, then I note that student's profile, and then I'm going to track the placements with an employer that are both successful and unsuccessful, and I develop a template of what works best with that employer. And we're talking things. I mean, that's how I use it. Now, why do I use it? Because as a practitioner, I'm serving a pretty wide breadth and scope of students whose parents are both surgeons and people who are in the foster care system. YouScience is the only tool I've ever used that doesn't have that built-in bias. Actually, it works it's at its best in spite of bias because it identifies what the student does. It's not what they're interested in, what they've been exposed to. A student in the foster care system may not have all the exposures that students who come from an affluent level with, every resource at their disposal may be exposed to. So this says, I don't care what you're interested in. I mean, it does filter that into it. I'm not saying it completely abdicates interest, but it does focus primarily on aptitudes and say, here's what you're interested in. That's cool. But here's what your skills are. And here's where your skills are naturally going to apply themselves. And it exposes those students to careers they may have never thought of. And that to me is a tool that pushes past those socioeconomic, familial makeup, geographical constraints, those have and have not constraints, and it tells the kid, I don't care if you have any engineers in your family, your skills lend itself well to engineering. And then I can say, as a practitioner who pushes for a both and career model of career counseling, not either or, I can say, here are all the options. What do you want to do? And they say, I like this option. And then I can give them a plan to pursue that direction.
Yeah.
And it is no student's ever going to want to do something, right? But as soon as you put them in YouScience, they realize it's not an SAT, it's a game. And then even then you have some kids who are like, well, I want to do this. But my students afterwards, like I have them give me an exit survey when they leave my program from YouScience. And it's my favorite part of it. I hate grading. I tell people I teach for free. They pay me to grade papers. But that's my favorite thing to go through and assess and read is their evaluation and say, I realized that I wanted to be X, and now based on YouScience, it showed me that I would be really good at Y, and I researched that, and now that's what I want to do. Or I have students say, I thought I wanted to be X, and YouScience affirmed that, and so now I'm doubling down and moving in that direction, and that it's just it increases efficacy, and it's no longer a gamble for me. I'm not taking gambles on students and placements. I am using data based on the science of that student and putting them in a position to succeed. And that's why I would say, Art, maybe I know somebody else. That's why I say I'm the biggest advocate who's not on their payroll.
I'd say that's true. I've heard you talk about it.
I mean, I love it. It is
It's that
the most
hope, right?
effective tool I have.
It's that hope that you give that kid. It's cracking that shell open and helping them discover more of what's out there,
Right.
and then realizing they're just, dang it, they're good at it, and they could go find a passion there that's going to drive the rest of their life and support
And a
their family,
secondary
their
point to
community.
that, Art, is how many students come to school and they have these built-in barriers, maybe students with special needs. How many students come to school, whether they have special needs or whether there's someone who's quiet and never really has interactions? And you've had those kids in my class, and those students never hear someone say, "You're good at this. Like you can do this." And I've had students in special ed where they come in and we have these conversations. They're like, well, modification, accommodation, and all they hear their entire career in school is, we're going to make this easier or a better fit for you. Everything is modified. YouScience says no accommodations, no modifications. You are good at this without exception.
Yeah.
And when a kid sees that and there's no qualifier, their face lights up and they're like, you can do this. You don't need modifications. You can be good at this. Like that's why I'm in education and not in the private sector, because that look on that kid's face when they realize I can be successful and I don't have to have any qualifying statements. Yeah, that's the tip on the paycheck for me. I love it.
Spoiler alert, when you finish your aptitude discovery and you finish those brain games, those challenges, those things that you go through, the very first thing that student sees is their name. And you trust it. And you have serious talent. Let's go explore it. And every kid, no matter what their circumstances are, sees that. And it's so empowering.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love it.
Let me ask you this, Jason. So we know that, right, our educational system's not built as a navigation system,
Yeah.
but this offers opportunity for students to truly navigate.
Oh yeah.
Um, how do you implement that? I mean, I'm guessing, I'm sure that there are people out there listening going, okay, well, how do you get students to buy into this? When do you use it? How do you implement it? Give us some examples.
Well, I mean, so I implement it in Georgia, we have what's called a bridge bill, which is it's a law that requires schools to give and provide students with customized, individualized college and career counseling. So that YouScience is the tool we use to fulfill that, right? But even then, for most schools in Georgia, it's just a hoop to jump through. It's a compliance checkbox. So how I use it and leverage it in my work-based learning program, every student who enrolls in work-based learning, which for me is 450-ish kids a year, right? That's around that area. They take it. And so that's how I leverage that. The assessment is designed to take it's about I say 15 to 20 minutes a day, 5 days. Okay, 4 to 5 days. And let me go ahead and say this a preemptive is and I don't, again, I don't work for YouScience Art, so I'll say this for you. I've heard the competitors say, yeah, but YouScience's assessment is long. Well, I want
Yeah.
to nip that in the bud. If I'm buying $1 million house and the person doing the inspection takes 5 minutes, I'm going to
Yeah.
be pretty pissed off. I want
Right.
a comprehensive, detailed analysis of what is good with this house and what's wrong with this house, where I can fix it, where I should be focused. It's the same thing with the career assessment. Don't give me a 5 minute assessment and count that as a bonus. Like that is dereliction and it is not preparing the
It's a
student. So yeah,
disservice.
Right.
Yeah.
100% right.
yeah. And
Yeah.
so for me, when I use it to go in and in a career tech area, but there's also applications for using this in academic areas. Academic teachers can use this to identify students who could compete in their mathletes club or identify students who compete in any of their clubs. You can use YouScience to build and develop seating charts, build and develop group projects, making sure you don't have put four extroverted brainstormers in a group and you're going to get a ton of ideas and nothing's going to get done. On the opposite, you
Laugh.
put,
I'm that extroverted person, and I've been guilty of that.
yeah,
I've been put in that group
yeah.
before.
And then you put four introverted specialists in a group and you're going to get four individual projects that get thrown together at the last minute because they like working by themselves. So you can go in and piecemeal things together and construct groups based on student strengths. If I were a CEO or a principal or a superintendent, I would have every teacher have their YouScience results based on period and there's those students in that folder, and I would want them knowing what that student likes, what that student doesn't like, how they think, and and pairing them together. So there's copious amounts of ways to use it outside of just the career tech area. But in career tech, man, um, they just I like knowing my student, knowing how to place them, and
Yeah.
and being able to help them identify and say, yes, this is what I want to do, or I thought this is what I want to do, and it's not now based on this, and I want to go this direction. It just keeps the students from wasting so much time in college or in any post-secondary avenue.
Yeah. Well, as we kind of near the end of this short segment, as a highlight of YouScience, I mean, truly, that's what we're doing it for. And Art, before I ask you the question of, what's the greatest impact, with this platform that you would identify for, students that would convince people to give a look at it at least. I do want to thank you and YouScience for getting on board and supporting the Future is Clear, Teach Like It's 2045, our online conference, which will happen in April here, the 21st and 22nd. Jason, you are speaking in a session on that online conference. But really, thank you very much to YouScience for being a sponsor for our conference. I really appreciate it, Art.
No, we're really excited to be a part of that, Scott. We're grateful that you gave us the invitation. It's not something we do often, but this just felt
Yeah,
like the right place and the best place to help out and to be a part of something. So yeah, thanks.
yeah, really, really. We've had a lot of great success working together. Jason, you've been impactful on that within our state, the great state of Wisconsin. We've got a handful of school districts that we've been doing pilots with. Art, you've been working with those teachers and those schools. We'll probably even do a true podcast with a couple of those leaders that have invested in that, just to talk even more around the great impact that we're seeing with YouScience. But give us why should somebody move this direction, Art? Give us the biggest sales pitch you got, buddy. I want to hear it.
I think one of the things that I'm gonna talk to what I'm noticing now, having been in education for a long time and watching the strain of budgets, regardless of what's happening on a political level and the funding and where things are coming from. What I've felt in the last couple of years is a tightening of those budgets and a need to find the right tools in the right place at the right time to do as much as possible.
Right.
Do less, do more with less is what's being asked everywhere in corporate world and education and everything. What an amazing advantage we have to be the more and to spend less.
Yeah.
We can check so many boxes in one place with so many different parts of our platform. And if you need to just parcel off a portion of that, great. Let's direct it to right what you need. But the ability to do so much with so little is so powerful, and that's one of the real true advantages we have, is to help check that box and to be there for you. Then on the backside of that is you're not getting less from us. You have amazing teachers like Jason and the others that you're referencing there in the state that would advocate for this program in a heartbeat because of what they've been able to accomplish with it. But then you also have the entire YouScience team behind you to help, our customer success team, multiple tiers of support. Questions can be answered. An AI-built help center where you just type in what you're looking for and it's there with the article and walkthroughs and videos. I've never seen a company invest in itself so much to help actually move the needle. And this is one of those pieces, and I love it. That's why I'm passionate about what I do.
All right, how many times, same thing with you, Scott, how many times is the best tool available and affordable? How many times those two intersect?
No.
In education, they don't intersect
they're
at all.
off the screen.
Yeah, they don't. But this is the best tool available, and it's the most affordable. So I don't understand. I mean, it should be ubiquitously implemented across the country. I'm still baffled that it's not. It's the best thing for students developing the ability to go in and self-advocate, to learn their skills and be able to communicate those skills. That's a massive thing, to use that self-advocation to develop social capital to move further in their career. Like, this tool is it's the intro level class for me in my program now.
Yeah.
It is the first thing you do because everything we do builds on it. And I'm very picky about my curriculum. I'm very picky about my student direction. And I have turned that completely over to the YouScience platform because it is that important and it has that much efficacy. It has not failed me yet. And there's very few things I can say about that in education.
Yeah, it is great stuff. And in conversation with one of the leaders that is looking to move to this platform next year with their whole school district, was the first time I heard Art, be transparent. It was the first time I heard, what the cost would be. And I was amazed at really how reasonable, affordable that price was. I was really, really shocked at how feasible it was. So that's really a compliment.
And I think a big word there is transparent as well. It's one of those things that I like to pride myself on, being transparent with what those prices are, how we can work with groups. And like we said with your area, Scott, we did some pilots and we worked with some schools in some specific ways. We like to think outside the box. We know we're trying to meet educators where they are and meet whoever it is we're working with where they are, and then help make things happen and show you what the product is. I like to work in a kind of a 3S model. We show you yourself what it looks like and let you discover those aptitudes for yourself. We show the rest of your staff what that looks like. And then we get those students involved, because once there's buy-in from those first two groups, the third group is really going to excel and they're going to reap the benefits.
Yeah, totally agree. Well, as we exit here, Art, if people want to, get in touch with you, get a demo, whatever it would look like on your end, how would they do that?
Yep. You go ahead and share my screen again. Here's my contact information. Just art.maxwell@youscience.com. You can reach out to me there anytime. I also have a cell phone or a phone number there that you can get to. You can also just go to YouScience and ping into our sales environment there at youscience.com. And if you are not in my territory, that YouScience link will link you to the appropriate rep where they can give you a demo, walk you through, and send you some invitations to see those things on your own. So
appreciate it. And Jason, same with you. I know you've been a great partner for us at CESA 2 and myself. And you're always willing to collaborate, network with people. If they want to get in touch with you, how can they do that?
Only social media I have is LinkedIn, and they're, Jason Van Nus, 2 words, VAN space NUS. I've built curriculum for you in this pilot. I've got a list of certain things we're doing with an event I designed called the Reverse Career Fair. I don't charge for that. That's free. If you want that, reach out to me. And so that's it. I mean, let me love to help however I can.
Yeah, appreciate it. Well, thanks again for both of you for joining. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having us.
You bet. And as we depart, remember, the future is clear. Take care, everybody.